Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are, because it is really good to be here today. My name is Baltimore Facts, and this is Baltimore. Yeah, almost. All right, it's not really Baltimore, not yet, but I had a discovery this morning, and now my timetable just got rushed. It just got rushed quite a bit, and so what I've been working on, what's been brewing in my head and in various rabbit holes, has been this concept of Baltimore. And so this is going to act kind of like as a trailer, right? I got all kinds of these images. And see, this was like I was going to try to make it like a trailer, but yeah. I got all these images here. That I'm going to go into depth on. It really kind of all starts with her, the Lady of Elk, or Elka. I got all kinds of stuff. So, and I'm going to just give a little preview of where I'm going to go with the next series, because Baltimore will really kind of be the culmination of Mud City. Not that Mud City is going anywhere. I'm still going to do episodes of Mud City, but in terms of where I could imagine this journey of taking me, when I started, and I'm going to get more into the episode is going to be either like a massive 2-hour thing, or maybe multiple shorter episodes in one kind of series, but I'm really excited about getting that information together, and it's been slow coming, but my discovery this morning is going to move this along quite quickly. Okay, so I was doing basic research on Baal and the Phoenicians and the Canaanites and things like this, right? And I've noticed in titles, I don't watch the videos because, again, I try to come to my own conclusions. I don't want to be over-influenced, especially by those in this community that I don't think have the best interests of the information at heart. So, is that polite enough? I found this video, this lecture by Carolina Lopez Ruiz from Brown University. Now, for those who don't know, Brown University is, it's a Ivy League school, right? It's a private Ivy League research university in Rhode Island, founded in 1764. So it's pretty old. It's the 7th oldest institution of higher education in the U.S., right? And one of the 9 original colonial colleges charted before the Revolution, right? Nice big red cross. We got the sun. I've seen the sun in other places like this, very similar. We got 7 spikes on 7 rays of sun there. So interesting coat of arms there for Brown University. Right. They say here it was the first college in the U.S. to accept students regardless of their religious affiliation. That they created the idea of students being able to build their own curriculums, right? The Brown curriculum, a new curriculum. So anyway, just really prestigious old-time school, and I wanted to go into what they say it's a research university, right? And it says, as a university committed to research as a central part of its mission. It does not matter whether the institution is public or private, or how the research is funded. Such universities have a strong focus on research and often have well-known names. See, I like this statement. It says it does not matter whether the institution is public or private, or how the research is funded. Meaning, all research is self-directed. You pay somebody enough money, they're going to come up with the results that you want them to get, right? Right? And that research universities are academic rather than vocational, so they may not prepare students for particular careers, but many employers value degrees from research universities because they teach fundamental life skills such as critical thinking. Globally, research universities are predominantly public universities, with notable exceptions being the United States and Japan. Gee, not the 2 biggest technological leaders on the planet, right? They have private research universities in Japan and the United States. But I like this, that research universities teach fundamental life skills such as critical thinking. One of the biggest fundamental life skill they're taking away from public education across the board. Unbelievable. All right. So I was watching this, and I'm not going to leave a link for it. Right. I was watching this lecture on the Phoenicians and the making of the Mediterranean, and it's a view from Tartessos. And so, just so I don't have to play a lot of the video, I'll just, what Tartessos is real quick. And I think it's very interesting, the phonetic, the phonetic associations of Tartesso and Tartaria, and a discovery like this for me certainly makes me glad that I come to it on my own. So it says Tartessos refers to a civilization developed by pre-Roman people settled in the southern third of the Iberian Peninsula, which is very important because, like I showed the Lady of Elk, Iberia, this is the Moors connection, the Romans, this is where it's all going to go for Mud City, for the next show, whose name I will reveal. So it's this region in Spain that's not quite, at present day, it's not coastal at all, but what they're finding is that at one time there was an inland river or bay or something that made this area like a coastal community, right? And that there's some like mythological elements to it, like. So the kingdom of Tartessos is known for its historical references, but the archaeological confirmation of the city is still to be fully determined. And that's kind of what this lecture is going to be about. There are two classic sources that confirm the existence of Tartessos. The Bible, doubtful. I wonder why the Bible is doubtful. And Greco-Latin authors such as Avenio, Cicero, Pliny, Herodotus, and Strabo. However, important material remains on this culture have been found, and many of the historical sources leave no doubt of their existence and of the important role played by Tartessos in the first half of the first millennium before Christ. Treasures found at El Carambolo in Seville or Aliceda show their artistic refinement and mastery of metalworks. The mythical foundation of Tartessos dates back to 1200 BC, although the historical kingdom does not appear until 750 BC. So, roughly 450 years or so of existence before it shows up in the historical record. According to mythology, there are three great kings of Tartessos: Gargarus, the honey gatherer, Habis, the farmer, and Geryon, the cattle rancher. The three stages of access to civilization according to the Greek conception. But the first historical king was Argentonio, to which Herodotus talks about. Herodotus? The best known character of this civilization or empire was Argentonio, monarch who moves between the legend and the historical fact, and in whose reign, end of the 7th century, the beginning of the 6th century, the Tartessian civilization reached its greatest splendor. Shortly after the end of this last century, the Tartessian civilization disappears, without the form or the causes being clear. According to some theses, the Carthaginians were the cause of their ruin. There is also the hypothesis that the Iberian people of Tudorulos, look at that Tudor, or Turdetanos is the heir of the Tartessians. All right, so maybe that was a little bit too much about it, but very, very interesting, Of course, that came after. I watched this whole lecture first because I want you guys to pay attention. This is where I caught him. This is one of those minor finds that, really helps, I think, personally, really helps bolster, and I hate to, of course, use this term, but the truthing cause, because it is definitely an example of how they try to hide, insert, change, whatever, our history. All right, so I'm going to pick up here at 10:30-ish in her lecture, and she's talking about, how the archaeological evidence is sort of pooling together with this idea that, perhaps Tartessos like the evolution of Tartessos can't be taken outside the context of the Phoenicians. Like there would be no Tartessos without the Phoenicians, kind of thing. And this is she's kind of talking about this balance that the scholars are trying to come up with, and whether Tartesia was, its own independent thing, or was it just, the influence of the Phoenicians on the local people that created Tartesia, right? And so here we go.
The difficulties of finding consensus among the scholarly community, among archaeologists, historians, philologists, epigraphists, and so on, is clear when you attend a congress, a conference about Tartessos. There is very little consensus in many ways. In the last congress in 2011 in Huelva, the main organizers came up with a manifesto for Tartessos. That's how it was called. I think it's funny. And the essential part.
They came up with a manifesto for Tartessos. So what she thought was funny, they called it a Tartessos, right? Okay. They came up with a manifesto for what Tartessos was.
It says, Tartessos is sorry, but they made us sign it. I mean, we had to sign it.
They had to sign it! Like it's a legal document.
I mean, they circulated the manifesto, and we actually signed the manifesto, and it was included in the volume of the conference.
Bang! They just wrote off, they created a narrative, had prominent scholars of the time sign off on it. Right there. Right? She just admitted it, right, to this conference in Brown.
Which tells you the kind of the anxiety that surrounds the topic, and the willingness to really reach some kind of consensus of how to define this thing called Tartessos, right, from different angles.
There you go, right? I think that's an amazing statement. I think that absolutely 100% catches them manipulating the history, right? And because of what she says a little bit later on, too. And let me set that up real quick.
There was a movement to and continued to be the masters of those regions until Roman times, until the Romans broke up their empire. In other words, he draws a distinction between the older Phoenician colonization and the Carthaginian domination, as well as other waves of North African Punic peoples, right? So different layers of Phoenicians, in a sense. So just that was to have some background about the about the sources, but there are tons and tons of sources, really.
Okay, and so the next little part of the lecture goes on about some of the source materials that are available for Tartesia, some of the writing that she was talking about. And she does make a very excellent point about how classicists have it easy because there's so much surviving written record, and that if you want to subscribe to any other school of thought, it gets harder because there's no written record. All right, but now she's going to talk a little bit about this, and I'm going to let her say it, and I'm going to let you, then I'm going to tell you what I think it means.
So at some point, there was a movement to archaeologize, to focus on the archaeology of Tartessos. Okay,
see, I don't think that she really screws up here, right? She says at some point there was a movement to archaeologize, meaning to create an archaeology, to focus on the archaeology of Tartessos, right?
And this turning point was in the 1950s, when we have the very famous finding of a treasure called the treasure of El Carambolo. This gold stash was found by chance under a pigeon shooting club. Yes, we have those in Spain too. In 1958. And it immediately sparked interest in Tartessos. That again, remember that before that, very little archaeology had been done on it.
Before this discovery, over it was a pigeon shooting club, right? Sure enough, under this pigeon shooting club comes this discovery, and I'm going to get into the Lady of the Elk in Baltimore Baltimore as well. But here we go. All right. There was a movement to archaeologize Tartessos, and this was found under a pigeon shooting club. Coincidence? I don't know. You tell me. But I think those two statements that this Carolina Lopez Ruiz, and it's very interesting her name is Carolina to me, because Carol. Right? You can't make this stuff up. And all apologies to Carolina Lopez Ruiz. I'm going to get your book. I mean, absolutely, I'm going to look for it. But so that's what happens in my research, and that's I think I found a nice little minor screw up where they kind of admit that they rigged the book. That they absolutely rigged the book. So. Okay, let's see. And so to close it all out with what's to come, like I said, Baltimore is going to be a big episode about the ancient history through the flood and things like this. It may be even multiple parts. It could be its own mini-series in and of itself. But then I'm going to bring it back into the city where all roads lead to Baltimore. And I'm going to do it this way. I've got the Catholic Connections Handbook for middle schoolers. I am so excited to go through catechism. And I've got all this research material about the founding of the Virginia colonies and the Maryland colony and the founding of the Premier See and the Catholic Church here in Baltimore. And I'm going to stick it to them. I've been reading this book over here, which is kind of open. Let's see if I can... This is The Religion Under the Barons of Baltimore. I've been actually reading it chapter by chapter and recording it for myself because the library was foolish enough to let this leave its halls. It's from 1899. And I'm not giving it back until I'm done. So anyway, that's my little, sneak peek. I show you how excited I am about what's to come. But also I believe that I caught them tripping up. They tripped up here, Carolina Lopez Ruiz a little bit, by blatantly stating that they created a manifesto about what this Tartesso was. And then it was a deliberate attempt to focus on the archaeology. And that conveniently, when that attempt was made, they found some treasure, right? Very, very interesting. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. So with any luck, the next one will be Baltimore. So until then, cheers, guys.